closed, we can move on to the next item on our agenda, Commission Statement, Establishment of the European Day of the Righteous. It is my pleasure to give the floor back to Commissioner Oliver Vacheli.
Dear President, honourable members, I'm very pleased to see that you have included on the plenary's agenda today a debate on the occasion of the European Day of the Righteous. The memory of Europe's history is the common heritage of all Europeans, today and also for future generations. Reconciliation with the legacy of the crimes committed by totalitarian regimes requires sharing and promoting this memory. In this context, it is also important to commemorate those who have stood up against crimes against humanity and totalitarianism. Our history is marked by dark chapters, in particular during and after the Second World War. The Nazi crimes and the Holocaust, the Soviet occupation and the crimes committed in Central and Eastern Europe under the totalitarian rule of communist regimes. We need to remember these dark chapters and their victims, and we need to remember those who stood against them. The Commission has established the 31st of August, the date of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, as the official day of the memory of the millions of victims of totalitarian regimes. The Commission encourages the Member States to examine the possibility to adhere to this Europe-wide day in light of their own history and specificities. Remembrance of the crimes committed by totalitarian regimes is essential for educating younger generations. Essential to educate them about the importance of promoting democracy and fundamental rights. Within its competence, the Commission facilitates the process of remembrance by encouraging discussion and sharing of experiences, as well as promoting joint projects. In particular, the Citizens' Equality, Rights and Values Programme supports remembrance actions reflecting the causes of totalitarian regimes, in particular Nazism, but also fascism. Honourable members, the righteous among the nations were individuals who saved Jews during the Shoah at the risk of their own lives. Next to the World Holocaust Center Yad Vashem, a tree has been planted for each of them. These heroes hid Jews in their homes, brought up Jewish children as if it was their own, helped Jews to escape Nazi persecution. Their actions and many of their righteous standing up against crimes elsewhere should serve as an inspiration for us today to stand up against injustice. In today's world, with the rising anti-Semitism and hatred, it is our duty to speak up. The courage of these heroes should inspire us to contribute to a world of justice, common values, and respect for all people. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your essential and moving statement. Letizia Moratti.
President, Commissioner. Schindler, Irene Sendler, Georgia Perlaska are only three of the men and women that are recognized as righteous among the nations, people through their heroic actions that put their lives at risk to save humans from the Nazi genocide of the Holocaust. We have Mr. Mandela for fighting against apartheid, Mugabe for fighting against rape in the Congo, And the righteous, no matter where they are, have saved lives fighting against genocides and defending human dignity under totalitarian regimes. More than 10 years ago, the European Parliament, with the support of all political groups, asked the institutions to have a European Day of the Righteous. The 6th of March every year is recognized by the Day of the Righteous by some institutions and member states, but despite the fact that we have a lot of forests and gardens of the righteous, the recognition is still limited. This is a symbol of fundamental rights, democracy, and the fight against all forms of totalitarianism. The first step against fighting against totalitarian regimes and showcasing European civilization at a time where what is happening reminds us that a fair society has to think about the stories of those who fought against indifference and fear, and that is why we clamor for an official recognition of the European Day of the Righteous and having more gardens of the righteous in Europe. We have to think about the courage of those who defended European dignity, and as an educational tool to promote responsibility and consciousness in the future generations, and to talk about resisting oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. Pier Francesco Maran.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, the righteous are those who in the darkest moments of our history chose to not look the other way, to try and make a difference. Even during Nazism and communist dictatorships, there are those who said no, risking their own lives. This is a gesture that our community has to acknowledge and make sure that this memory remains alive from generation to generation. We have these forests and gardens of the righteous. I'm very aware of this because this project exists in Milan thanks to the association called Gariwo. We need this even more nowadays because there are those who defend what is right despite the injustices and massacres that are occurring at the moment around us. In May 2012, in this very chamber, we adopted a declaration saying that we wanted a European Day of the Righteous. This statement or declaration mentioned by Mrs. Moratti just a minute ago was supported by all political groups. And I would like to say that one of those who signed this was David Sassoli. So on the 6th of March as an important day, and it's different to the 31st of August. And in this debate, Commissioner, I would really like us to make this declaration a reality so that the 6th of March can be known as the European Day of the Righteous.
Julien Léonard.
Thank you. Julien Leonardelli.
Monsieur le Président.
President, Commissioner, honourable members, it is with great emotion that I take the floor to honour the righteous, those that sacrifice their own lives to save the innocent from barbaric Nazi acts. When travelling to Jerusalem recently, the leader of our party, Jordan Bardella, went to Yad Vashem and honoured the millions of French and Europeans that saved Jewish people from certain death. Allow me to share a personal commemoration. Roland de Berchery, French righteous person. We need to honour all those that have sacrificed their lives to ensure that France and Europe can be free. On the 8th of May, I will be honouring the memory of those that fought for our freedom against Nazi Germany. We need to honour the Day of the Righteous. We do that on the 21st of June in France. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Vice President Antonella Saberna.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. Italy pays tribute to the victims, helps the families, and honours all the righteous who risked or lost their lives in order to save the lives of others and those who survived and lived to tell the story. Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, used these words in order to pay tribute to those who in the darkest moments of histories chose the side of morality. This is a very important proposal that we're discussing. The righteous are those that during the Holocaust, genocides, totalitarianism, and the blind violence of hatred didn't look the other way. These are the individuals who defended human dignity during totalitarianism and Nazism. Men and women that are giants in the heart of humanity despite not being known by everyone. I think that we have to affirm that we need public recognition of those who did good. It's not just about regulations. I'm a mother, I'm an Italian, and I feel the duty to support this initiative. To pay tribute to the righteous is a way of telling our children that there is no peace without memory, there is no civilization without individual responsibility, and that if Europe wants to have a future, it has to cultivate its roots and own identity. Thank you.
Thank you. Billy Kelleher.
I am privileged to be able to take part in this debate. The establishment of a European Day of the Righteous is not only a wonderful idea, it's also long overdue and very necessary to honour, but also to remember and to remind us and to make sure it reminds us never to repeat the horrors of the past. This is an idea that has been long in gestation and we must now deliver. The righteous were, for the main part, ordinary people who did extraordinary things. They did the most noble of things. They put themselves at risk to save the lives of others. As has been said, just over 28,000 people have been conferred with the status of righteous among the nations. 28,000 people who went above and beyond to support their fellow human beings. 28,000 people who stood up for European values of human dignity and decency. 28,000 people who stood up against Nazism and stood up for the Jewish people being hunted and murdered by the most evil and vile people. From a personal point of view, I'm very proud of the only Irish person to receive the honour, Marie Elizabeth Ellams from my home city of Cork. She helped save the lives of 200 Jewish children during the Holocaust by hiding them in her car and transporting them to safety in the south of France. Mary Ellams died before she received her due recognition. However, I was delighted and honoured in 2019 to attend the official opening of a pedestrian bridge in Cork City named in her honour. We all owe a great debt of gratitude to everyone who stood up against Nazism, and especially those who risked their lives to save the lives of our Jewish brothers and sisters. It is only right that we, as a union, have a day to honour them and their good deeds.
Merci beaucoup, cher collègue.
Thank you. Caterina Vieira.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear colleagues, the European Day of the Righteous came about in 2012, intended as a way of commemoration, a way to honour the brave people who risked their lives to stand up for democracy and humanity in the dark times of totalitarianism that our continent experienced not too long ago. It is also a day to remind ourselves that we may never allow these tendencies to rise again. No one could have expected that just 10 years after the creation of this day, we would be confronted with war in our continent, with an authoritarian-leaning president in the White House, and with chilling amounts of anti-democratic forces deeply cemented in European governments and parliaments, in this House too. This combination is a toxic cocktail, posing an existential threat to our democracies and our societies. Against this backdrop, the only way to truly honor the righteous is by echoing their voices today, to speak up, to denounce all forms of totalitarian regimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Do it now as they did back then. Our democratic values fade when we silence the righteous, so we must speak up. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Petr Bistron.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident.
President, honourable members, Commissioner, today we honour the brave men and women who, in the past century, stood firmly up against a totalitarian system, any totalitarian system, the Nazi or communist systems. We are humbled by their bravery. They often place their own lives on the line. Why do we honour their memory? Is it about laying wreaths, planting gardens? No, Commissioners, you quite rightly pointed out, the point here is that these individuals are role models for our young people today. We need to remain alert to see totalitarian tendencies today, ensure that we preserve democracy. We need to look at the brave people who are countering totalitarian systems today. Tommy Robinson in the UK, who currently sits in prison, has been treated unfairly. The prison management has banned him from receiving visits from members of the European Parliament. Or Michel Balze, leader of the extra-parliamentary opposition in Germany, fought against totalitarian behaviour by the police during COVID lockdowns. What about Professor Meltzer from the UN? Wanted to investigate this, and yet this individual stayed in prison for 9 months. These are the brave people of the current day. Thank you.
President, Commissioner, thank you very much for this opportunity. We Hungarians are very familiar with communism and the horrors of the Arrow Cross dictatorship. People were deprived of freedom, their faith and their national identity. Under the communist Arrow Cross dictatorship, there were forced labour camps, there was a secret police, and every day freedom of expression was not there, and any resistance was oppressed. On the Day of the Righteous, we pay tribute to all of those people who fought for their freedom. But we can see now, unfortunately, that democratic values are under threat in Europe. And we are moving further and further towards tyranny. This day should not just be about remembering the past. It's also a warning for the future. Europe cannot allow us to move in that direction. We need to fight for freedom, for justice, and we need to protect what fascism and communist victims tried to do. That is real democracy. Thank you.
Mularczyk.
Thank you. Mr. Mularczyk.
Panie Przewodniczący, Panie Komisarzu.
President, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pay tribute to those who fought with the German Nazism and Soviet crimes, those that chose humanity over fear. There were, among the righteous, were many Polish people, Ms. Sendlerova, Mr. Pilecki, or Mr. Karski. Thanks to them, the world remembers. But, Commissioner, you need to go further on, because today the victims of the Second World War in Poland, Greece, or Italy have no way to fight for compensation. So you should make the Germans to really reconciliate and pay for the crimes.
Christian.
Thank you. Christian Terras.
Dragi colegi, trebuie să aducem un omagiu celor care...
Ladies and gentlemen, we should pay tribute to those who resisted dictatorship, who fought for freedom, dignity, and risking their own lives in order to do so. Often their motive was their Christian faith and the desire to help others. We have a lot of examples across Europe. Romania has had two dictatorships, a fascist one and a communist one. And there are a lot of examples of Romanians who risked their lives saving Jewish people during the Nazi period in Romania. We also have examples during the communist period, jails that were full of those who were bold enough to fight and to resist communists and listen to Radio Europe, Radio Free Europe. This isn't just about drawing lessons. This is also about the future, because tyranny must be stamped on. We have to defend freedom, democracy, human rights, and fundamental rights and freedoms. And we mustn't forget the courage of those who fought against fascism and communism. And we have to make sure that their sacrifice remains alive.
Thank you. We can now start the Catch the Eye procedure. Masilis Yudis is our first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner, colleagues, true humanity manifests itself in the face of danger. We talked this week about the million of political prisoners who, despite the danger, speak out and are therefore imprisoned, tortured and murdered. Today we talk about those who act silently but also put themselves in mortal danger by saving others who face persecution. They have this instinct to save others, those who are dying. They often do this without thinking, just because they have to, and their names often remain unknown. Whether we talk about victims of Holocaust, of genocide, or Bolshevism, the martyrs of totalitarianism, their memory must be held in highest regard. Memory can unite us. Let's strive for it. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Juan Fernando López Aguilar.
Thank you very much, President Omarjee, Commissioner. In March 2012, there was a declaration from the European Parliament to establish the 6th of March as the European Day of the Righteous, for all those people who sacrificed themselves in the 20th century to save lives in the face of Stalinism, fascism and Nazism, and also to save people from genocides. There have been genocides in Armenia, in Cambodia and Rwanda, among others. And this memory of the righteous recalls to us that genocide is an international crime. And the ICC is responsible for dealing with crimes against humanity. And therefore it's sad and it's a disgrace that the only member state, Hungary, is withdrawing from the International Criminal Court following on from the visit of Netanyahu in a blatant violation of the rules. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Vitanis Andriukaitis.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioner, colleagues. This initiative is extremely valuable to proclaim the 6th of March, the Day of the Righteous. I was born in the Gulag of the Stalin. My parents were there from 1941 till 1954. They were imprisoned. I was also raised by Dr. Viktor Kutorga, a Jewish doctor. He was a live example of what it meant to be a rescuer in tragic circumstances. I am seeing neo-fascists and other extremists who are moving towards a new totalitarianism. But let's recall Mussolini, Hitler, Stalinists. They are all our enemies, and the righteous among the nations will remind us of what it means to be righteous. Thank you.
Sebastian.
Thank you. Sebastian Dinkinen.
Mr. President, European Day of the Righteous is an opportunity to honor those who have dared to stand against injustice and oppression. Too often, people tend to speak grand words but hesitate when real actions are needed. This must not be just another symbolic gesture. Today, I want to highlight a group too often forgotten. Those brave Russians and Belarusians who risked their lives resisting authoritarian regimes. They are imprisoned, silenced, and even murdered for defending human rights and democracy. The tragic death of Alexei Navalny is just one example. We must actively encourage these people who dare to stand up against the regimes of Russia and Belarus, the very devils of oppression and control. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much. Petros Grazoulis.
Sveiki.
Good morning. I was imprisoned in the Soviet camps. I was prosecuted because I sought to defend the rights of Catholic people. I wanted Lithuania to be independent. I had a chance to meet Russian dissidents. I was invited to the house of Solzhenitsyn, Kovalov, and others. When Lithuania restored its independence, and when it started pursuing genderism rather than communism, I am being judged again because I am quoting the Holy Bible. Officially, it is not forbidden, but formally it is not permitted. The US president, when he went to visit Gorbachev in Moscow, asked to free political prisoners, among them me. I think I should ask President Trump to react to what is happening in Lithuania and to try to defend freedoms in Lithuania and Europe.
Merci. Lucas.
Thank you very much. Lucas Zieper.
Dear people of Europe, by recognizing the European Day of the Righteous, we honor those who did the right thing, not because it was easy, but because it was right. The righteous are those who hid families during the Holocaust, the ones who stood up to dictators, the ones who said no when silence would have been safer. They remind us conscience is not a luxury, it's a duty. And this duty does not end in books or museums. It calls us now to protect those who resist Russia, to defend women who fight for freedom in Iran, to support lawyers who take Trump's government to court right now. Not just when it's fashionable, but when it's dangerous. Because to be righteous today is to carry the legacy of those who have been righteous before us. Let us be worthy of that legacy. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, cher collègue.
Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of this debate, and I would like to give the floor to Commissioner Várhelyi.
Dear President, honourable members, I want to thank you for this debate. And as recalled in your 2012 resolution, which supported the establishment of the European Day of the Righteous, remembrance of good is essential to process European integration. It teaches us and younger generations that everyone can always choose to help other human beings and defend human dignity, and that public institutions have a duty to highlight the example set by people who managed to protect those persecuted out of hate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. Colleagues, debate is closed on